Hello everyone, my name is Ivo and welcome to Cooking with the Koyas. You know, when it comes to flour, the type of flour you use can make a huge difference in the dish that you're preparing. Whether you're baking or cooking, the type of flour is key. Today I'm going to let's talk about quickly flour for pastries, pastry dough, flour for pasta dough, flour for pizza dough, and also flour for bread. And along the way, I'm going to share a couple of tips with you as well. So let's get started right now. Okay, so first of all, this episode is not intended to promote any brand. I just happen to have these ones on hand, so I'm showing them. It's more about the type of flour and the percentage of protein. Not all flours are created equal. Here I have a 00 flour. This one is 10% protein. Here's another 00 flour. This one's 11%. This 00 is 13.3%. Let's move our way over to this rye flour is only 6% protein. This whole wheat is 14.4%. So, and then I have some 00 pizza flours that are 13.3%. And then we have semolina flour, which is at 14%. So right off the bat, you can see there's a huge difference, and it makes a difference which flour you use for which dish you're preparing. So quite simply, for pastries, it's very easy. When you're baking, you want an apple pie crust, or you're baking a cake, you want a very low protein, anywhere from 8% to 10% protein level, and a 00 flour is ideal because it's very fine and it's going to be very delicate for your baking needs. So out of all of these, if I were baking today, I would use this particular one. Let's talk about gnocchi first, because it's basically in a classification of its own. Gnocchi are a very soft and delicate dish, unlike, let's say, your other homemade pastas. So in the case of gnocchi, you're going to want to use anywhere flour, a 00 flour, which is nice and soft, of a protein percentage between 10 to 12% protein for gnocchi. You want a low level of protein to get that soft texture out. So this is 10%, this is 11%. I would use either one of those. Now, of course, if all you had was an all-purpose or one of these 00 flours, of course you could still make gnocchi, and of course they will still turn out. But the difference will be, these will be good gnocchi, these will be fantastic gnocchi. And speaking of fantastic, in the coming weeks I'm going to share with you a recipe for gnocchi that is out of this world. So stay tuned for that one. I will film that one and air it in the coming weeks. First off, let's talk about egg noodle pasta. So for egg noodle pasta, you want a protein level between 12 and 14%, somewhere in that range. So right off the bat, I wouldn't use either of these two flours because they're too low in protein if I'm going to make an egg noodle pasta. I'm going to look towards this 00, and also a semolina flour. Let me explain. So these two 00 flours are 13.3%. So no problem, you want to go ahead and use these to make your egg noodle pasta. However, if you want to bring your egg noodle pasta up to the next level and give it a better texture, better taste, and more of a rustic feel to it, then what you want to do, folks, is use half of this 00 flour and half semolina flour. So you're going to end up with a net protein by combining the two of 13.65%, which is very nicely in that range, but you're going to have a fantastic egg noodle dough, and the texture and the taste is going to be fantastic. It's easy to handle. You're going to love using that. So yes, you could use just this to make egg noodle pasta, but I found the combination of these two flours, that's the ticket. So when making non-egg noodle pasta and you're just using water and flour, then your percent protein is a little higher. Instead of being 12 to 14, like we mentioned with the egg noodle pasta, it's 13 to 14% for just straight water pasta with no eggs. So in that case, you could use straight semolina flour, because this is 14%. Just use this with water, which I've used to make my cavatelli, and I'll put a link in the description if you want to see that recipe. Or you could blend these two flours together. You'll still be between 13 and 14%, and use your water and make a pasta like the peachy pasta that I made, and I'll put a link in the description so you could check that out as well. So in summary, for egg noodle pasta, 12 to 14%, no egg pasta, 13 to 14%. All right, now one of my favorites. Let's move on to pizza. When it comes to pizza, as you know, I've been making pizzas for years. I've been experimenting with different flours, different hydration levels, and I'm going to say about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I came up with what I found to be the absolute perfect flour and perfect combination to use to make the absolute best pizza. And in fact, in the coming weeks, I'm going to make some pizza for you using my special recipe. So stay tuned for that, because that's coming real soon. But when it comes to pizza, so this is a semola flour that specifically says it's for pizza. This is just a semola flour. What's the difference between the two? I really don't know. This one says for pizza, this one just says semola. They're both 14% protein. They're both semola flours. I don't know what the difference is. However, when I do make my pizzas, if I have this one, I will use this one just because. Okay, so these are also 00 pizza flours. This one and this one, they're both the same at 13.3% protein levels. So when it comes to making pizzas, what I found is the absolute best protein level is between 13.3% and 13.5%. So any flour that falls in that range would be good flour to use. So of course, these are 13.3, they fall in that range. You could use these flours, no problem. This is 13.3%, you could use this for making pizza, no problem, would be very, very good. They're all 00s and they're all 13.3%. But what I found, folks, is if you mix some 13.3% 00 flour with some semola flour, now you've got the fantastic, fantastic combination for better dough handling, amazing texture, fantastic taste, the right chew, the right crispness. It's a great mix of two different flours to come up with a fantastic, fantastic pizza dough. And what I like to do is I like to use 235 grams of a high protein 00 flour, like these, 235 grams. And then, for example, I'll use 50 grams of semola flour. That gives me the proper percentage mix to make my pizza dough. And I am going to, oh, one more thing I want to mention. The other tip that I've learned over the years is what is the perfect hydration level for pizza. Using this flour, what I found, the perfect hydration level is 64.5%. That to me is the ideal hydration level for making pizza and pizza doughs. So stay tuned, because in the coming weeks I'm going to film, I'm going to make some pizza, I'm going to share my recipe, my technique, and we're going to make a fantastic pizza using one of these dough flours, and of course a mix of one of these as well. I'll probably use this one because that's what I've got. So stay tuned for that. Oh, and in case I didn't mention it, when I blend my two flours together to make my pizza dough, the net protein turns out to be 13.42% when I blend to that ratio. Absolutely perfect, right in the middle of that range from 13.3 to 13.5. Now, when it comes to making bread, you're looking for a higher percentage protein when it comes to your flour, and a few things to keep in mind. So you're going to want a minimum of 13.3% protein to over 14% for those beautiful artisan crusty style breads. So in this case, these are all over 13.3, including our whole wheat, which is 14.4. But remember, our rye was only 6%. So if you're going to blend different flours to make your bread, keep in mind if you're adding rye, it's only 6% protein, so it's going to bring down your total level. So you want to compensate that by maybe adding some whole wheat, which is a very high in protein, to help offset the low protein. But anyhow, any combination that gets you to from 13.3% to over 14% is a great mix for bread. Hydration levels vary depending on your level of crumb that you want and crust. However, I don't have it here, but most all-purpose flours are usually 13.3%. Just check the back of the package and you'll be able to tell for sure or not. But I also like to use unbleached white. Why use bleach when you can get yourself a nice unbleached, let's call it healthier flour to use when you make your bread? And the other tip that I'd like to share with you, and I'm going to use this tip in an upcoming video when I make bread, so stay tuned for that one because that's coming as well. And that is, yes, everyone talks about flour, water, salt, and yeast, but they're forgetting about one other important ingredient: vinegar, and in particular, apple cider vinegar. Yes, you could use a little bit of regular vinegar as well, but apple cider vinegar is just that one little bit that takes you up to that next level again. So using a little bit of vinegar will actually make the dough easier to handle. It improves your gluten structure, so you're going to have better air pockets. It's going to retain gases more and a better crust overall. It also acts as a natural preservative. And the other beautiful thing, adding a little bit of vinegar or apple cider vinegar, it gives you that sourdough feel to that loaf of bread. So if you don't have a sourdough starter, this is a great thing to add to your bread to give you that sensation, let's call it. And the other thing it does, it also acts as a natural preservative, so it makes your bread last a little bit longer. So there you have it, folks. A little bit of vinegar goes a long way when it comes to bread making. And again, I'm going to share a video with you in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. So the next time you're looking at a recipe and it calls for flour, keep some of these tips in mind depending on what you're making, and that'll help take you to that next level and just make your dish that much more better. I'm so happy to be able to share these tips with you today. I hope you give them a try, and I want to thank you for tuning in and spending time with me on today's episode of Cooking with the Koyas. And as always, folks, until next time, buon appetito.